The annual grand event of the Seven Kingdoms was meant to dazzle. Tables heavy with meat and wine, banners of each realm rippling in torchlight, the vaulted hall alive with song and sharpened pride. Yet for Martha, it was another night of servitude. She carried goblets for men who would never speak her name without spitting after it. Her tray rattled as she passed through the crowd of alphas and heirs. Every eye seemed to weigh her, as though she were some stain dragged into Alexander's great hall. A boot jutted suddenly and she stumbled. Wine spilled across the polished stone, scarlet creeping toward the boots of the one who had tripped her. Harry, Alpha of Blackmoor. His smirk curved slow and cruel. Careful, he drawled, loud enough for the tables to hear. The traitor's whelp doesn't know how to kneel properly. The laughter came sharp and eager. Of course it did. Martha had been dragged from Harry's own kingdom as a servant, a reminder of her parents' so-called betrayal. She bent quickly, gathering the goblets before the wine soaked her skirt. Harry pressed his heel over one, pinning it beyond her reach. Lower, he whispered. Show them all what your blood is worth. Her wrist burned with the old mark, the brand that cursed her as traitor's spawn. She clenched her teeth. They would see no tears from her. A horn shattered the mockery. Doors opened with a gust that snuffed the nearest torches. Silence thickened. Into it strode Alexander, the Lykan king, head of all alphas, the most feared ruler of the Seven Kingdoms. The laughter died. The air itself seemed to bow. Harry withdrew his foot, feigning obedience. "High King," he said smoothly, "forgive the mess. The servant is clumsy." He all but shoved Martha forward, offering her humiliation as tribute. Martha forced herself to lift the goblet, her knees raw from the stone. She felt the weight of every gaze, waiting for the king's punishment, waiting for her to be erased. But Alexander did not look at the spilled wine. His eyes locked on her mark. Something unreadable crossed his face, something sharper than recognition. He stepped closer, filling her world. The hall held its breath. "Stand," he commanded. He did, trembling. Then, before the council of alphas and the gathered kingdoms, Alexander's verdict broke tradition in half. "You are mine, from today onward. This is only the beginning, and if you're still with me, don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss what happens next." Chapter 1. The words echoed like a bell tolling across the vaulted ceiling. "You are mine, from today onward." For a heartbeat the grand hall froze. Then the storm broke. Every alpha, heir, and counselor erupted at once. The noise rose like a pack in frenzy, shouts of outrage, disbelief, and even fear crashing together until the chamber shook with it. Silver goblets toppled. Meat and bread were forgotten. All eyes seared into Martha, who stood trembling in the king's shadow. "She bears the traitor's mark," an elder thundered, slamming his cane into the floor. "A serving girl from Blackmoor, Harry's servant," someone else barked. "This insults every kingdom gathered here tonight," another cried. The uproar swelled until Martha's skull ached with it. She had endured mockery her entire life, but never before had the condemnation of 7 kingdoms been leveled against her all at once. Her knees trembled, though she fought to keep her chin lifted. The brand on her wrist throbbed as if mocking her with its permanence. And still the Lykan king stood unmoved. Alexander's presence dominated the hall, tall and unyielding in his black mantle edged with silver thread. While others spat fury, he remained utterly calm. His stillness was sharper than their noise, commanding, dangerous. He let their rage rise, crest, and then with the smallest flick of his hand, silence dropped like a blade. Martha dared to glance up. His gaze swept the room, not with fire but with the cold assurance of someone who had never been defied without consequence. Only one man still spoke. Harry. Harry, Alpha of Blackmoor, Martha's tormentor since childhood, the one who had dragged her here as a servant to parade before the courts. His smirk had vanished, replaced by a mask of wounded dignity. Yet Martha could see the fury coiled beneath it, a fury aimed directly at her. "High King," Harry said, bowing low but with venom dripping from every syllable, "that girl comes from my halls. Her father's betrayal branded him a traitor and cursed his line. She carries his shame, and by claiming her you dishonor us all. This choice, it weakens the very foundation of your throne." The other alphas murmured in agreement, emboldened by Harry's words. "Yes," one shouted. "Tradition forbids it." Another hissed, "A king cannot mate with cursed blood." Martha's heart beat so hard she thought it might burst. She wanted to shout that it wasn't true, that her father had never betrayed anyone, but her voice shrank to nothing under their scorn. She was no alpha, no counselor, no queen. She was a servant girl, marked and forgotten. Yet Alexander's eyes lingered on her, steady, unblinking. For a flicker of a moment she thought she saw recognition there, as if he were measuring something in her that no one else had cared to see. When he finally spoke, his voice was quiet but carried to every corner of the chamber. "You speak as if your word outweighs mine, Harry. Do you challenge your king before the 7 kingdoms?" A hush swallowed the hall. Harry's jaw clenched. His eyes burned with defiance, but slowly, deliberately, he lowered his gaze. "I do not challenge you, my king," he said, though his fists curled at his sides. "I only beg you to consider the insult this places upon your crown." Alexander did not blink. "My crown does not bend to your insult. My word is law." The finality in his tone left no room for argument. The other alphas bristled, some muttering, but none dared defy him openly. Only Harry's silence smoldered, thick with venom. Martha's breath came shallow. Why was this happening? Why had the king chosen her of all people? She, a girl branded as traitor's blood, a servant meant to be invisible. Confusion warred with terror, and under it, a spark of something she was too afraid to name. Alexander's gaze shifted to his guards. "Escort her to the fortress," he commanded. Martha was escorted out of the hall, her tray abandoned on the floor, the echo of goblets still ringing in her ears. Behind her, voices rose again in fury, but the heavy doors slammed shut, sealing her away from the storm. The corridors of the fortress blurred as they hurried her along. Torchlight threw shadows that seemed to reach for her. Her heart thudded so hard she barely noticed the splendor around her. Walls hung with ancient banners, polished suits of armor standing sentinel, mosaics of wolves beneath her feet. At last the guards stopped before an iron-banded door. Without explanation they pushed it open and guided her inside. Then they left her, the lock clicking behind them. Martha turned slowly, wide-eyed. The chamber was vast, larger than her entire cottage back in Blackmore. Heavy drapes in deep crimson framed tall windows. A fire crackled in a stone hearth, casting light over carved chairs and a bed draped with fur. The air blew on her face gently. She pressed her back to the door, her knees weak. Her fingers brushed the mark on her wrist as though it might answer the questions spinning in her mind. Why me? Why no? Her whole life had been lived under the weight of shame, her worth measured only in silence and servitude. And yet, with a single sentence, the Lykan king had torn that veil away. The words burned in her chest, heavier than chains, sharper than any lash. Were they a punishment, a claim of possession meant to humiliate her further? Or could they mean something else? Her gaze drifted to the bed, the banners, the fire. She didn't belong here. She had never belonged anywhere. The thought made her chest ache. The silence pressed in, broken only by the crackle of the fire. She wrapped her arms around herself, trying to steady her breath. Chapter 2. The hall emptied in angry currents, leaving only the ring of high-backed chairs and the 7 banners stirring in the draught. The council chamber, round as a coin and twice as cold, filled with alphas and elders who smelled of steel, smoke, and old power. Alexander took the central seat and did not remove his mantle. Harry did not wait for ceremony. "This gathering was called to honor our unity," he said, voice smooth and sharpened. "Instead, the crown drags a servant from my halls and claims her before the 7 kingdoms. You insult Blackmoor, my house, and the laws that keep wolves from tearing each other apart. Murmurs rippled. A gray-bearded elder from Westcliff tapped his cane. Tradition is clear. A king does not choose cursed blood. Alexander's fingers rested on the arm of his chair, still as carved stone. Tradition is a tool, not a master. Spoken like a man who thinks himself above it, Harry replied. She bears the traitor's mark. Her father betrayed his oath. Will you stain the throne with that line? The word traitor dragged a blade across memory. For an instant, the chamber faded and Alexander saw not stone and banners but his father's dying bed, linen stiff with sweat, moonlight pooling on the floor. The late king's breath had rattled as he gripped Alexander's wrist. Do not trust the story they wrote about him, the old man rasped. He was my friend. If you ever find his child, protect her. Blackmoor's wolf wears another man's guilt like a pelt. Alexander blinked back to the present. He let the silence stretch until even the bravest men shifted. You speak of stains, he said, yet offer no proof beyond a brand burned by frightened men to make their lies permanent. A matriarch from Frost Hollow stiffened. Are you accusing our councils of false judgment? I am saying judgment without truth is theater, Alexander answered. And I do not rule by theater. Harry's mask slipped enough to show the snarl beneath. Then rule by war. Blackmoor will not bow while you crown a servant as Luna. If she crosses my border as queen, my wolves will answer with their teeth. Several alphas rumbled in agreement. A younger heir leaned forward, hungry for the idea of blood. If Blackmoor fights, so does Stonebridge. Enough, Alexander said, not loudly, and the chamber obeyed. You mistake my restraint for weakness. Do not. He stood. The movement pulled every eye. Hear my decree. Until I say otherwise, the girl is under royal protection. Any hand raised against her is a hand raised against the crown. I will consider your counsel on tradition when it is counsel and not threat. Westcliff's elder tried for diplomacy. Then test her by law. Invoke the circle. If she survives the ritual, some objections will cool. Harry seized it like a thrown spear. Yes, let the circle judge what the king will not. Alexander's jaw flexed once. The circle had preserved order through centuries, and broken more than a few innocents along the way. He thought of Martha's thin wrists, the tremor she hid behind her teeth. He also thought of the way she had stood when he told her to, even with the world watching. There was a line in her that had not snapped. Not tonight, he said. You bay for blood because you smell weakness. You will not have it. This council is adjourned. Chairs scraped. Cloaks snapped. The matriarchs gathered like winter geese, whispering. The young heir's bravado cooled under Alexander's stare. One by one they filed out, some resentful, some relieved to break from the weight of his will. Harry lingered. He approached the dais with a courtly smile that did not touch his eyes. A word, my king. You are respected because you are cold with your mercy. Do not thaw for a servant girl. Alexander descended the steps until they stood a breath apart. He could smell iron on Harry, sword oil, and something fouler coiled beneath it. Men follow truth, Alexander said softly. And wolves follow the one who does not flinch. Harry's gaze flicked, quick as a strike. Then do not flinch when Blackmoor refuses to kneel. I do not ask for knees, Alexander said. Only for obedience. Which is another word for kneeling, Harry murmured and offered a bow that was all teeth. Sleep well, your majesty. May your new prize survive long enough to see daylight. He left the chamber with his entourage at his heels. The door boomed shut. The quiet that followed was not peace. It was the held breath before weather breaks. Alexander stood alone beneath the banners. Westcliff's stag, Frost Hollow's raven, Blackmoor's wolf. The wolf seemed to watch him with a knowing grin. If you ever find his child, protect her. He turned the words over like a coin in his palm. Protection could be armor. Could also be a chain. He would not make her a prison of his claim. He needed answers. Proof. And the girl herself, Martha, was the only place to begin. Clear the corridors, he told the captain waiting in the shadow of a pillar. No one approaches the royal chambers without my mark. The captain bowed and vanished into the hall. Alexander left the council ring and took the inner stair. The fortress breathed around him, old stone and the memory of wars, while the wind worried at the arrow slits and pulled heat from the torches. He walked without hurry and without pause, the way he did when giving a hunted thing a chance to choose whether to flee or face him. Outside the guarded door he stopped. The guards straightened. One reached for the latch. Not yet, Alexander said. He listened first. Fire crackle. The soft shift of fabric. A heartbeat, quick and steadying itself between fear and stubbornness. He set his palm to the iron, felt the chill bite his skin and pushed the door inward. Chapter 3. The heavy door shut behind him with a finality that made Martha's stomach twist. The fire cracked in the hearth, throwing orange light against the carved stone walls. But the chamber suddenly felt smaller, the air taut and sharp. Alexander's shadow stretched across the floor, taller and broader than any man's should be, until it touched her shoes. She pressed herself against the edge of the table as if the oak could shield her. For a moment he said nothing. His gaze moved over her, taking in her clenched hands, the faint tremor in her shoulders, the brand burned into her wrist. His silence was more terrifying than Harry's threats had ever been. At least Harry sneered, mocked, barked. This quiet appraisal stripped her bare without a word. You are afraid, he said at last, his voice low, resonant. Martha swallowed hard. She wanted to deny it, to cling to the shreds of dignity she still possessed, but her throat refused. Shouldn't I be? She whispered. His brow lifted a fraction. Afraid of me? Her breath caught. The fire popped behind her. Of everyone, she admitted. Of what they'll do to me for what you said in there. A faint curve touched his mouth. Not a smile, not mockery, but something unreadable. They will do nothing. Because you claimed me, she said, the word claimed tasting strange on her tongue. Because I commanded it, he corrected. He stepped closer and the room seemed to shrink. Do you understand what it means, Martha, when I say, you are mine? Her pulse thudded in her ears. It means I belong to you. Like a possession. His eyes darkened, something fierce flashing in them. It means no wolf, no alpha, no kingdom may touch you without answering to me. It means their jeers and brands no longer define you. My word does. Martha's knees weakened, but her chin lifted. Why me? Why risk the fury of 7 kingdoms for someone they despise? Alexander studied her for a long, unreadable moment. His hand lifted, hesitated, then caught her wrist gently. She flinched at the contact, but his grip was not cruel. His thumb brushed over the scar of the brand. Because this mark tells a story, he murmured, and stories are not always told the same way it happened. Her breath hitched. The warmth of his touch seeped into her skin, confusing her senses. She searched his face, but his expression gave nothing away. My father taught me that, he continued softly. Not all accused are guilty. And not all kings are just. Her heart jolted at the mention of his father. She wanted to ask, what do you know? What did he tell you? But the words tangled behind her teeth. He released her wrist and turned toward the fire, his cloak shifting like storm clouds. Harry will not forgive tonight's humiliation. He will come for you through words or blades. You must be ready. Martha's stomach dropped. Ready? I'm a servant, not a fighter. You are more than they think, Alexander said, his tone sharp enough to slice through doubt. I saw it in your eyes when you stood before them. You did not break. She laughed, short and bitter. I wanted to collapse. But you didn't. He faced her again, stepping so close the fire haloed around his shoulders. His scent, cedar, smoke, iron, wrapped around her senses, unsettling, almost intoxicating. Strength is not the absence of fear. It is standing anyway. Martha's throat tightened. No one had ever spoken to her like that. Not as if she were more than shame, more than a mark burned into skin. She dropped her gaze quickly, afraid he might see too much in her eyes. You will stay in these chambers under guard, Alexander continued, his tone clipped back to command. No counselor, no rival, not even Harry himself will set foot here. And if I refuse? The words slipped out before she could catch them. His head tilted, a flicker of surprise, and something like respect, passing over his features. You could, he said evenly. But the moment you step beyond this protection, they will tear you apart. Not because you are weak, but because you are dangerous to the lies they built. Dangerous. The word struck deeper than any insult. She shook her head, whispering, I'm nothing. You are mine, Alexander said again, firmer this time, the echo of thunder in his voice. And that makes you everything. Her chest burned, caught between defiance and the pull of his authority. She wanted to hate him for binding her with words, for making her a symbol she never asked to be. But she could not ignore the strange steadiness his presence gave her, as if his claim had drawn a circle around her that nothing could breach. Before she could speak, a sharp knock rattled the door. Alexander's head snapped toward it, his expression turning to steel. I gave orders not to be disturbed. The captain's muffled voice carried through. Forgive me, Majesty. A message from the council, it cannot wait. They invoke the circle. Martha froze. She had heard whispers of the circle all her life, the ancient trial where blood and bone proved worth. Few Omegas survived it. Alexander's eyes darkened to storm. Stay here, he told her, his tone low and dangerous. No matter what you hear, do not open this door. Then he turned, cloak sweeping, and strode into the night to face the council's demand. Martha pressed her back to the wall, her hands trembling against the scar of her brand. The fire roared higher, shadows clawing the walls, but its warmth did nothing to stop the chill that crept through her bones. Circle. They meant to test her. To break her. And somewhere deep in her chest, beneath the fear, a question coiled like fire. Would Alexander truly stand against them all, for her? If you're watching, stay close. And subscribe to my channel so you'll be here when the truth finally breaks. Chapter 4. The fortress courtyard was crowded when Martha was brought out under the moon. Torches hissed in the cold night air, throwing orange light on the stone circle that had been drawn into the ground with chalk and ash. Wolves from all 7 kingdoms pressed close, their eyes eager for a show. Martha's heart hammered. She had heard of the circle since she was a child. A brutal test where an Omega had to stand against warriors until they collapsed or proved their strength. Few survived. It was not justice. It was blood sport. Harry stood near the council seats, his smirk back in place. If she is worthy, he called, let her prove it here. Before the eyes of every alpha gathered. The elders nodded. Some muttered that tradition demanded it. Others leaned forward, hungry to see the servant girl fall. Alexander's jaw tightened as he stepped forward. This is not a trial. It is cruelty. The crowd laughed, jeers curling through the night. Martha's stomach twisted. She wanted to scream that this was wrong, that she had never chosen any of it. But her voice caught in her throat. A guard pushed her toward the circle. The chalk glowed faintly under the torchlight. She stepped inside, her legs trembling. The first challenger entered, a broad-shouldered wolf from Stonebridge, his teeth bared. He circled her like prey. Martha stumbled back, her chest tight. She had no claws, no training. Only the certainty that she was about to die. The wolf lunged. Before his blow could land, a roar split the night. Alexander moved like a storm, his cloak whipping as he shoved Martha behind him. His hand caught the challenger's strike and the force cracked like thunder. Gasps tore from the crowd as the Lykan king held the warrior at bay with one arm, his eyes glowing gold in the torchlight. She is mine, he growled, his voice rolling like the earth itself. And no one touches what is mine. He hurled the wolf back against the stones. The man crumpled, gasping for air. The courtyard fell into stunned silence. Then another wolf entered the circle. This one carried a blade. He slashed low, aiming for Martha. Alexander blocked again, but the steel grazed his side. Blood darkened his shirt, spreading fast. Martha's breath hitched. Instinct shoved her forward. She caught his arm as he staggered, her hands already pressing to the wound. Heat flared in her palms, bright and strange. Alexander's eyes widened as the pain eased. The bleeding slowed. Before his eyes, the gash sealed, leaving only a faint mark on his skin. Martha's heart pounded. She had never shown anyone this gift, not since she was a child. She had hidden it, fearing what it would mean. But now, under the moonlight, there was no hiding. The crowd gasped. Some whispered, "Witch." Others stared in awe. Harry's face twisted with fury. "See? Dark magic. She is cursed." But Alexander straightened, his arm firm around Martha. Martha looked up at him, her breath caught. His eyes burned with something she could not name. Anger, yes, but also a strange pride. His hand brushed her shoulder, steadying her, anchoring her in the chaos. For one heartbeat, the world shrank to firelight and the space between them. The warmth of his body pressed near, the memory of his blood still hot against her fingers. Her skin tingled where she had touched him, and she wondered if he felt it too. The council stirred, breaking the moment. The elders whispered among themselves, their faces pale. Some looked shaken. Others looked hungry. "This changes nothing," Harry spat, though his voice shook. "She is still a servant, still the child of traitors." Alexander's gaze cut to him, sharp as a blade. "And you are still afraid of her." The crowd hissed with unease. Martha's knees trembled, but Alexander's hand did not leave her shoulder. He kept her upright, a shield and a warning both. At last, the eldest counselor rose. "This circle is broken," he said. "We will speak again at dawn. Until then, she remains in the king's chambers." The torches sputtered as if the night itself exhaled. The crowd began to disperse, muttering, glancing back at her with suspicion and fear. Alexander led her out of the circle, his hand firm at her back. His steps were steady, but Martha knew she had seen him bleed. She had felt his life slipping and pulled it back. And she knew with chilling certainty that nothing would ever be the same. When they reached the quiet of the inner corridor, Alexander finally spoke. "You should not have shown them," he said softly. Her throat closed. I couldn't let you die." His eyes met hers, burning gold even in the dim light. "Then perhaps," he said, voice low, "you are more dangerous than I thought." Chapter 5. The council did not waste time. Before the torches burned halfway, the eldest elder stood and struck his staff. "At dusk," he said, "the girl will face the people. They will judge what she is." The words hit like a door slamming. No one argued. The choice was made. Harry's mouth curved. "Good. Let all 7 kingdoms see her truth." The chamber emptied in a hum of boots and cloaks. Martha stood very still, the air thick in her chest. Thousands of eyes. Thousands of voices. She felt small as a leaf in a storm. Back in her chamber, she pressed her palms to her face, breath shaky. The fire gave no comfort. The door opened. Alexander stepped in and closed it behind him. "What will they do to me?" she asked, voice thin. "They already think I'm cursed. How can I stand there and live?" "You lived last night," he said. "You stood when they tried to break you. You saved me, though it put a target on your back." "I was afraid to lose you," she blurted, then flushed. Something softened in his eyes. He came closer, unhurried, until the fire lit the edge of his jaw. "Afraid to lose me?" "You were bleeding," she whispered. "I couldn't let you die." He lifted her wrist and brushed the scar with his thumb. "They call this shame," he said. "I see proof you survived what should have broken you." "Why do this for me?" she asked. "You could have let them send me away." His gaze held hers. "Because lies will not rule my crown. And because the moment I saw you I knew fate had led you to me. They may call you nothing. To me you mean everything. The words settled in her bones, heavy, frightening and warm. Her heart pounded so hard she thought he must hear it. A knock broke the stillness. A guard bowed in. Majesty, the square is already filling. The council asks that you present her before dusk. Alexander dismissed him with a nod. When the door shut he turned back to her and took her hand. His grip was steady, warm. Listen, he said. When you stand there, lift your head. Do not beg. Do not shrink. Let them see you. I will be at your side. What if they throw stones? She asked. What if they call for blood? Then they will answer to me, he said. No one takes you from my protection. Chapter 6. The square boiled with noise. People filled the steps, the rooftops, even the fountain at the center. Torches burned in rows, smoke curling into the evening sky. There she is, someone shouted. Witch, another voice cried. Traitor's blood, came from the back. Martha's heart thudded, but she lifted her chin. Alexander walked steady at her side, a wall of calm in black and silver. The council stood on a raised platform. Harry spread his arms wide. People of the 7 kingdoms, he called, voice smooth, the king has claimed this girl. But she carries strange power. Ask yourselves, can such power be trusted? Hisses rolled through the crowd. Martha's stomach knotted. Then near the front, a young boy collapsed in his mother's arms, gasping for breath. The woman cried out, helpless. Martha moved before fear could stop her. She knelt beside him. Hey, she asked. The mother nodded through tears. Martha placed her palms on the boy's chest. Heat stirred in her hands, pulling and flowing. The boy coughed once, then breathed deep. Color returned to his cheeks. The mother clutched him close, sobbing. Thank you very much, the woman said with gratitude written on her face. The crowd hushed. People leaned forward, uncertain. Harry's shout cracked the silence. Tricks. Martha rose, her knees shaking but her voice steady. I didn't trick anyone. I only helped. I can't change this mark on my wrist, but I can choose what my hands do. A few heads nodded. Someone said, she healed the boy. The sound in the square shifted. Alexander stepped forward. You saw her heal, he said. Harry's face darkened. Then see this truth. He signaled and guards dragged out a wooden chest. Inside were papers and a dull iron ring. Blackmore's records. A traitor's oath. Proof of her cursed blood. Gasps stirred, but before anyone could read, steel flashed. A dagger cut through the air, spinning toward the platform. Alexander moved like a storm. He caught the blade in his palm. Blood ran down his hand, but he flung the weapon aside. The crowd roared in shock. Martha seized his hand, fear driving her. Warmth poured from her palms, and before all eyes the wound sealed. She healed him, someone cried, no longer afraid but amazed. The noise grew restless, uncertain. Harry's mask slipped. He slammed the chest shut. Proof, he shouted. Don't let her fool you. Stop. The word came from the back, old and rough. The crowd parted as a hooded man walked forward, leaning on a staff. His beard was white, his eyes steady. From his cloak he drew a small pouch. Inside was a silver ring marked with a crest, wolf and star. The old man's voice carried. I served her father. He was no traitor. He gave me this ring to keep until his child stood where lies could drown her. Today I return it. Harry paled. Lies. Forgery. Let the king test it, the old man said, unshaken. Alexander did not take it. He looked at Martha. Do you want to see? Her throat tightened. She nodded. The ring slid onto her finger as if made for her. The hum of voices swelled, not yet cheers but not hate either. Something was shifting. Harry's fury snapped. Seize them both, he screamed as he noticed the truth was about to be revealed before the crowd. Steel flashed at the edge of the platform. Another dagger cut through the air, this one aimed straight for Martha's heart. Chapter 7. The dagger flashed toward Martha's heart. Something inside her snapped awake. Heat surged through her chest and down her arm. She twisted, not back but into the throw. One small step that changed the blade's line. Steel sliced her side instead of her heart. The crowd cried out. Pain flared hot. Martha's hand flew to the wound. Warmth poured from her palm, bright and steady. Blood slowed, stopped. Skin knit under her fingers. She drew a breath and straightened. She had saved herself. The square went silent. Thousands of people holding the same breath. Then the sound rolled back, shaken and unsure. She closed it, someone whispered. On her own, another said. Alexander was already moving. He hurdled the platform rail and drove a knee into the attacker's chest. Steel clattered. Guards swarmed. The man spat foam and hate. Which, he barked. For Blackmore. Alexander's fist dropped him cold. Harry tried to turn the moment. See, he shouted, voice breaking. Violence follows her like a shadow. She endangers the crown. She just healed herself instead of begging for mercy. A woman snapped from the steps. I saw it with my own eyes. Martha pressed her palm harder to be sure the cut held. It did. Her knees shook, but she kept her chin high. She looked at the faces nearest her, not at the hate far back but at the doubt close by. I won't harm you, she said, steady as she could. I have never harmed anyone. Alexander climbed back to the dais and took his place beside her. Not in front, not behind. Beside. His voice carried clean. She bled and she stood. She was hunted and she did not run. You want to call that a curse? Call it by its true name, courage. The old messenger stepped forward again, staff tapping stone. He pointed at the ring on Martha's finger. And blood. Royal blood. Eyes turned to the crest, wolf and star, bright in the torchlight. The murmur deepened, a tide turning against rocks. Harry slammed a palm on the chest of proof. Records, he shouted at the elders. Read the oath that damned her father. The eldest elder lifted a parchment with shaking hands. Wax cracked. He scanned the faded lines and frowned. This seal is struck with Blackmore's mark, he said slowly, but the witness names are missing. Alexander kept his eyes on Harry. The records are broken. The seals are false. And a man shouted your kingdom's name as he tried to kill in front of us all. How many signs do you need before you see the truth? Harry's smile twisted. You speak of signs. I speak of safety. If you insist on keeping her majesty, prove you can control her. Swear it to them now. The word control made Martha's stomach twist. He felt the trap in it. Alexander's eyes flicked to hers, asking silently what she wanted. She gave a small nod. He trusted him. Alexander turned back to the people. His voice was steady and strong. Until the truth is fully known, she is under the right of shelter. That means no one touches her without facing me. No one calls for her blood without calling for mine first. A heavy murmur spread through the crowd. Everyone knew the right of shelter. It was old law, older than kings. Even enemies respected it. The crowd went quiet. No one moved. Then a small voice cut through the silence. Thank you. The boy Martha had healed wriggled out of his mother's arms and stepped forward. He raised his tiny hand toward her. Laughter bubbled from a few people in the crowd, nervous but lighter than before. Martha bent down, her throat tight, and took the boy's hand. You're welcome, she whispered. From the edge of the square, a guard shouted, Second attacker. There. A cloaked man ran. Guards chased after him. The crowd shook, then slowly calmed again. Alexander leaned close to Martha, his voice low. You moved fast back there. Like you'd done it before. How? I don't know, she admitted. I just reacted. Good, he said. The eldest elder raised his staff. This council will meet again at dawn. The records and the ring will be tested by right. Until then, the king's right of shelter stands. The crowd began to break apart. Some spat at the ground as they passed. Others stared at Martha with doubt or curiosity. Many simply walked away, unsettled but no longer shouting for blood. Hidden among them, men Harry had planted tightened their grips on hidden bows. He had seen enough. Every passing hour was slipping from his hands. If dawn came, the truth might rise with it. He needed her gone tonight. Harry waited at the bottom of the steps, his lips pale, his smile frozen in place for those still watching. As Alexander and Martha passed, Harry muttered, "You can't protect her forever." Alexander didn't stop walking. "You're right," he said. "The truth will." They entered the fortress lane. The torches flickered in the wind. Smoke and iron faded behind them, replaced by the cold smell of stone. Martha touched her side where she had healed herself. A dull ache remained. She let out a shaky breath. "They didn't kill me," she whispered. "They won't," Alexander said firmly. She looked up at him. "You can't promise that." "I just did," he answered. Then she felt it, something wrong. The crowd behind them shifted. She smelled iron in the air, the smell of drawn bowstrings. A whisper brushed her ear, sharp and urgent. A woman's voice, "Run." Martha grabbed Alexander's cloak and yanked. An arrow hissed through the space where his neck had been and shattered against the wall. Shouts exploded. Guards raised shields. Arrows rained from the rooftops. Alexander spun, his eyes burning gold. He pulled Martha tight against him as the next volley poured down like a storm. Chapter 8. Arrows poured down like a storm. Alexander pulled Martha against him, shielding her with his cloak as shafts struck stone around them. Guards raised shields. Screams rang out as the last of the crowd scattered in panic. "Down," Alexander ordered. He shoved Martha behind a pillar. An arrow split against the stone where her head had been. A rooftop archer notched again. Alexander leapt from the steps, scaling the wall with terrifying speed. In moments he vanished over the edge. A scream followed, then a body thumped across the tiles. Another archer aimed at Martha. She ducked, heat rushing into her palms. She thrust her hand out without thinking. A force rippled from her and knocked the man back. His bow clattered away. Two attackers charged the platform. A guard blocked one, but the other came for Martha. She grabbed a fallen shield and slammed it forward. The man staggered before a guard dragged him down. Above, Alexander roared, the sound shaking the square. He dropped from the roof like a stone, eyes blazing gold, and tore through the last archer. The guards quickly bound the rest of the attackers. Martha's chest heaved. Her hands still tingled with strange energy. She stared at Alexander, his teeth sharp, his eyes glowing, and felt both fear and awe. "Are you hurt?" he asked, his voice rough. She shook her head. "No." "Good." His hand brushed hers for a moment, steadying her. One captive spat at her feet. "For Blackmore," he hissed. The captain searched him and pulled a folded note from his belt. He handed it to Alexander. The king read quickly, his jaw hardening. "What is it?" Martha asked. Alexander crushed the paper in his fist. "A warning. Tonight was only the beginning." Chapter 9. The room was quiet except for the fire. Martha sat on the bed's edge, holding the torn sleeve where an arrow had grazed her. Alexander stood near the door. "You should let me fix that," she said, nodding at the cut on his shoulder. "It's nothing," he said. "It's blood," she replied. "Sit." He hesitated, then sat. She set her palm to his skin. Warmth gathered. The cut closed. His breath eased. "Thank you. You told me to save my strength. I changed my mind." She smiled. "You do that a lot." "I'm a king," he said dry. Silence. Outside, boots thudded. A guard gave a passphrase and was answered. "What I saw on the roof." She searched his face. "You were not only a man." "I am Lykan," he said. "More wolf than man when it matters." "Does it frighten you?" It frightens me when it's used badly. He tilted his head. Did it frighten you? A little, she said. And not at all. He lifted a brow. You were between me and the arrows. A knock. The captain stepped in, helm under his arm. Majesty. The elders demand a night sitting. Blackmore says the ambush proves the girl is a danger. They want her in a ward cell until dawn. Alexander looked to Martha. I won't hide, she said. But I'll go if you command it. I don't, he said. The captain added, we caught a runner at the east gate. He carried a ring with Blackmore's inner seal. So the chain reaches higher, Alexander said. We'll answer. He offered Martha his hand. He took it. The council chamber felt colder by torchlight. Elders ringed the table. Harry stood near the record's chest. A bold night, he said. And still you keep the danger in your halls. The danger fights for me, Alexander said. Your men shot at my crown. My men. Harry spread his hands. You have a branded wrist and guesses. Alexander set the seized ring on the table. Found on a runner who fled east. Your inner seal. A plant, Harry said. Wax can be copied. Then the right will test it at dawn, Alexander said. And the records with it. The eldest elder cleared his throat. The ward cell is safer. For her and for us. Martha said, a cell won't stop men who ignore law. It will only hide me from the people who saw me help a child. An elder scowled. You will not teach us law, girl. She states a fact, Alexander said. Harry leaned on the chest. Keep her beside you then. If blood spills before sunrise, the seven kingdom will know whose choice made it flow. If blood spills, it's because someone ordered it, Martha said. The room stirred. Alexander's voice cut clean. No ward cell. She stays under my shelter. At dawn we open the records, test the ring and speak names out loud. Names? Harry asked. The ones missing from your oaths, Alexander said. Harry's smile slipped, then returned. We will be here, Majesty. He swept out. Elders broke into knots. The captain watched the doorway. Alexander turned to Martha. You did well. They walked back through the tight halls. The fire in her chamber had burned to red coals. Alexander stopped at the threshold. Rest, he said. Will you? When I can. Stay, she said, then flushed. Just until the lamps go out. He leaned on the door frame close enough that his heat reached her. They watched the flames. After a quiet stretch, he said, at dawn they'll try to shame you into silence. I'm done being silent, she said. Good. Then we fight together. She lay down when his breathing told her he was still there. Sleep took her. In the corridor, a shadow slid toward the stair. The whispering woman paused at the bend, glanced back, then slipped away. Down in the square, wind lifted ash. Beyond the east gate, riders moved like ghosts. Dawn was coming. Chapter 10. The first light of dawn crept over the fortress walls, gray and cold. Bells rang to call the council. Guards lined the halls, shields polished, eyes sharp. The weight of the night's attack still clung to the air, but the law had demanded this trial, and it would not be delayed. Martha walked beside Alexander, her fingers brushing the scar on her wrist. Her chest was tight, but her chin was lifted. She would not be silent anymore. Alexander's stride was steady, his cloak torn where arrows had struck, left that way on purpose. He wanted the council to see the cost of crossing him. The chamber was already full. Elders sat in a ring, torches burning low despite the growing light. The chest of Blackmore's records rested on the table. The old messenger stood at the side, staff in hand, the royal ring still gleaming on Martha's finger. Harry waited by the chest, pale from lack of sleep but with a smile stretched too wide. Majesty, he said, bowing low. The kingdoms gather for truth. Let us give it to them. Truth, Alexander said, is what we came for. The eldest elder raised his staff. We begin. He gestured to the parchment. Bring forth the oaths. A scribe read aloud, voice echoing. The record accused Martha's father of betraying Blackmore during a border war. But the lines naming witnesses were blank. Strange, murmured one elder. No signatures. Harry spread his hands. Time has worn them away. But the seal is clear. The old messenger stepped forward, lifting his chin. I was there when they branded him traitor. He begged for a fair counsel, but Harry's father silenced the room. They forged papers to steal his lands. Lies. Harry barked. This man is a wanderer, no proof. Then test the ring, Alexander said. He nodded to Martha. Martha slid the silver ring from her finger and placed it on the altar stone. The eldest elder lifted it carefully. He poured wolf's blood over the crest. For a moment nothing happened. Then the mark flared, glowing faint blue, the sign of royal bloodlines. Gasps spread through the chamber. Even the doubtful elders leaned forward. It responds, the eldest whispered. This is no forgery. All eyes turned to Martha. Her knees shook, but she stood straight. My father was no traitor, she said. You burned his name because you feared it. Harry's face tightened. His voice rose too fast. So what if she wears a crest? Her blood does not cleanse her. Power like hers will rot this council, will rot the people. Look at the chaos already, arrows in the square, men dying on rooftops. She is a curse. Alexander's hand fell on the table with a sharp crack. Those men carried your seal. The chaos was your doing. The captain stepped forward, holding the ring taken from the runner. We found this on the assassin. Blackmore's inner mark. Elders leaned close. Whispers flew. One slammed his hand on the table. Enough games, Harry. Did you send them? Harry's eyes darted left, then right. Proof can be planted. Can you swear the king himself didn't stage this for sympathy? The words hit the chamber like a spark in dry grass. Murmurs rose, some shocked, some intrigued. Alexander stood. His height and power silenced them. You call me a liar before my crown. You insult not me alone but the law of all 7 kingdoms. His voice grew colder. If you want proof, let us end this in the old way, trial by Fong. The chamber froze. The right had not been called in a generation. It meant combat. It meant blood. Harry paled, then forced a laugh. You would lower yourself to fight me? I would lower nothing, Alexander said. At dusk we meet before the people. If I win, her name is cleared. If you win, take her blood and crown it with your lies. The elders looked between them, torn between fear and hunger for spectacle. Martha's breath caught. Alexander was risking everything, his life, his throne, for her. She wanted to speak, to stop him, but her voice failed. The eldest elder lifted his staff. So be it. At dusk, the trial of Fong. The staff struck the floor. The sound echoed like thunder. Martha's hand found Alexander's cloak. Her voice finally broke free, soft but certain. Why would you risk this? He leaned close enough for only her to hear. Because fate gave me something worth bleeding for. Harry's smile returned, sharp and cruel. Then bleed you shall. Chapter 11. Dusk light lay cold. In the armory, a squire buckled the last strap on Alexander's leather. He had refused heavy armor. It slows me, he said. You don't have to do this, Martha said. I called the right, he answered. So I must finish it. What if he kills you? Then I die keeping a promise. He touched her wrist, warm over the old scar. Stay where my guards can see you, he said. I can help. You already did. His thumb brushed her pulse. A horn sounded. Walk with me, he said. They crossed to the square. Torches kindled. 7 banners hung still as stone. People filled the steps. Elders waited on their dais. In the sand ring, Harry stood bare-armed, a smile on his face. The eldest elder raised his staff. By old law, Fong answers doubt. Yield ends blood. Death ends lies. He looked from Harry to Alexander. The fight starts now. Harry struck first, fast and low. Alexander slipped aside, caught the wrist and slammed him into sand. Harry rolled, sprang, raked at Alexander's chest. Leather tore. Red welled. Martha's hands curled. Bleed for them, Harry hissed. Alexander's eyes burned gold. He blocked, turned and drove his shoulder into Harry's ribs. Harry staggered, then laughed. You can't save her from truth. You mean your lies, Alexander said. They circled. Sand scuffed under their boots. Harry fainted, snapped a hidden blade from his bracer and slashed. Steel kissed Alexander's throat. The elders lurched up. He hit a blade. Martha shouted. Harry lunged to finish it. Alexander trapped his arm. The knife clattered away. No more tricks. Then take this, Harry snarled and shifted. Fur ripped along his spine. His wolf was lean and vicious. He sprang for the throat. Alexander met him, half-shifted, hands, teeth and speed. They crashed in a blur of sand and breath. Harry's jaws snapped where Alexander's neck had been. Alexander slammed him down, but Harry tore free and raked claws across his shoulder. Blood streaked. The crowd edged back. Martha wanted to run to him. She held herself still. He had asked her to trust him, and that is what she must do. Harry circled, panting. Kneel, he growled. Call her curse and I'll spare you. Alexander straightened, blood on his jaw. I kneel to truth. He drove in. Bodies hit sand. Harry writhed and bit. Alexander anchored and pressed forward. Then he found the opening and locked Harry's throat between forearm and bicep. Yield, Alexander said. Harry clawed furrows. Never. Yield, Alexander repeated. Harry's kick slowed. His eyes rolled. He rasped, curse, and flailed weakly. Alexander held. Yield. Harry's hand slapped sand. The elder's staff cracked. Yield witnessed. Alexander stepped back. Harry shifted back to a man, hate in his eyes. She will ruin you, he choked, hand sliding toward his calf. Martha saw the glint. Knife. Harry ripped a second blade free and sprang. Alexander moved faster, trapped the wrist and wrenched the knife away. It skittered to the elder's feet. This is your truth, Alexander said to the crowd. No more lies. He faced the dais. Name the judgment. The eldest lifted his staff. By right the king stands. The charge against the girl is void until records are set right. The square erupted, shock, then shouts, then the start of a cheer. Harry staggered to the fence. Someone pressed him a cloak. He clutched it, eyes burning at Martha. It isn't over, he whispered. From the far steps a clear voice cut the noise. The hooded woman from the night pulled back her hood, a scar across her jaw. No, she called. She stepped forward with a sealed scroll. Seeing this, Harry's face turned pale. The book. The square was silent as the hooded figure stepped into the torchlight. Slowly the cloak fell back, showing a lined face, a scar along the jaw and eyes that carried years of watching. Gasps rippled. I was sworn to her father, the figure said, voice steady. He saved my brother's life when Blackmoor's warlords would have left him to die. On that day I swore to keep his truth. She raised the sealed scroll. This is that truth. The eldest elder motioned her forward. Hands trembling slightly, she placed the parchment on the altar stone. Wax cracked. The seal broke. A scribe unrolled the parchment and read aloud. Names filled the page. Witnesses, dates, confessions. The handwriting was clear, the seals true. It told of how Harry's father and his circle forged the betrayal, stripping Martha's father of honor and land to cover their own crimes. The elder's face went pale. These are the missing names. The signatures prove it. The crowd erupted, shock, anger, and cries of shame. Wolves howled from the steps. Martha's heart hammered. Tears blurred her vision. For years she had carried the weight of a lie, and now the truth stood in daylight. Alexander's hand found hers. He lifted it high, the ring gleaming in the torchlight. His voice carried across the square. "Hear me. The girl they called forgotten is royal born. The family they cursed were no traitors. By blood, by law, and by bond she is mine. She is your queen." The words rolled through the people. Some bowed at once. Others hesitated, then lowered their heads. A cheer began at the edge of the crowd, swelling until it shook the banners. Harry was dragged forward by guards, his face white with fury. "Lies. All of it." The hooded woman cut him off. "I was there, Harry. I watched your father give the order. And I watched you benefit from it." The elder struck the floor with his staff. "The truth is written. The right is sealed. Blackmore's line will answer for this treachery." Harry fought against the guards, but the crowd no longer listened. His voice drowned in their roar. Martha turned to Alexander. Her voice trembled. "They know now." "They do," he said softly. "But I knew from the moment I saw you stand when they wanted you broken." Her eyes burned. "I was no one. You are everything," he said. He leaned close so only she could hear. "And you are mine." The crowd's cheer rose again as Alexander bent and pressed his brow to hers, claiming her not with force but with choice. Heat and strength flowed between them, the bond settling like fire into her bones. The hooded woman, her father's last ally, watched with a faint smile. "Debt paid," she murmured before slipping back into the crowd she came from. Torches flared. Wolves howled. The night that had begun in fear ended in truth. Later, in the quiet of her chamber, Martha stood at the window. The fortress now felt like home. Alexander came behind her, wrapping his arms around her shoulders. "The kingdoms will fight change," he said. "They always do. But they cannot change fate." She leaned into him. "I thought fate forgot me." He kissed the crown of her head. Fate was only waiting. She closed her eyes, the weight of the past sliding away. She was no longer the forgotten girl. She was the Lykan king's mate. She was the queen. And this time she would never stand alone. What do you think about this story? I want you to tell me your thoughts in the comments so I can know how to bring more interesting stories to life. And don't forget to like this video and subscribe to my channel to support me.